How do you talk about something that's such a blessing and such a tragedy at the same time? Why I got involved in a business that I could do from my dining table, a business that I could do at the time just using my computer. It's one of those things that I look back and think, thank God, and why. When you have these memories, you can see them. I'm sure every single mum can understand exactly what I mean when I say that if anything happens to your child and you're a part of it, you're involved in it, you don't ever forget the feeling of actually being there. So the day that Jack went missing from his daycare was one of the most in the moment times that I've ever lived in my entire life. So we pulled up at the Daycare Centre, and I'll just go back a little bit. My husband and I, it was a brand new marriage. We'd been through so much trauma. He was trying to run an 8-day-a-week business, if you know what I mean, pay child support and all the other associated costs that come with property settlements and things like that. And we were working basically 8 days a week to try and get things back on track. And my eldest son, Ben, was in primary school. I don't know, elementary school. I don't know what you guys call it here. And our youngest son, Jack, was 2 at the time. And we had him basically in daycare 5 days a week. And we went to pick him up one afternoon from daycare. And, we pulled up to the curb and one of the room leaders kind of ran by me on the sidewalk. And I was like, well, that's odd. Well, where's she going? And then, we went, because there was a back entrance to Jack's room. And so we went around to the back entrance and the gate was already ajar. So I was like, well, that's weird. And so I opened the gate and I walked kind of under the shaded area and into the room, and I could see that there was another room leader, daycare lady, holding a little blonde boy, but I knew instinctively that it wasn't Jack. You know how you're like looking around like. And so I said to her straight away, "Where's Jack?" The look on her face told me everything that I needed to know. They didn't know where my son was. So I immediately, without blinking, I pushed my husband out of the way. Mother's instinct. And I raced back out of the gate, and I just, and the daycare centre was actually on a 4-way. So I didn't know which way to go. And I just ran. That's all I can remember. And the thoughts, 2 thoughts that were racing through my mind. One, he's walked into somebody's backyard and he's fallen into a pool. Or he's just gone onto someone's property and their dog's gotten him. Or like, they were the 2 major things that were racing through my brain. And so I'd gone in all 4 directions. I felt like I'd gone in all 4 directions, and I just happened to go up one way of the street, and I got to a 3-way intersection. And I kind of, I looked right and then I looked left. And when I looked left, I noticed that there was a lady standing on the sidewalk about a 1/4 mile, maybe a little less, away from me, holding a child. And it seemed to be that she was standing beside her vehicle. And so I raced up, I ran towards her, and she was kind of holding this child like, like fending me off, like, what? And, I got close enough to recognize that it was Jack. And there he was in his, his little white singlet and his nappy. And he had no clue. But she was like, whoa, wow. And, I had to quite quickly explain, this is my son. He went missing from, the daycare centre around the corner. And she was like, holy shit. She was handing him over to me, like in disbelief. Because I instinctively, at first, I think, out me, she was going to tell me, what the is your son doing wandering the street? And so she and I were like, blah, 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 blah. And I grabbed Jack back, I had Jack back, and I kind of got out to her that he'd gone missing. And she actually said to me, and this was like 2001, you guys. So, talking on mobile phones was a whole new thing. And it really wasn't, I don't know whether it was law or whether, no one discussed it, but she said to me it was so lucky that I was on my mobile phone because I was driving slow and he just stepped out in front of me. Someone was looking down on us that day. Someone. But it was a real lesson to me. And the reason that I tell this story so much is because I really don't want women to go through periods like this where it takes a tragedy to make them make a decision. There are so many options out there for women who feel hopeless, feel alone, and feel that they're not making a difference, or there's only one certain way to make a difference. That this event in our life changed everything for us. But it was a real calling for us to sit down as a couple, Brett and myself, and say, how can we raise our children better? How can we be more present for our family? And, how can I avoid something like this ever possibly happening again? It took me 2 years of research to find something that ticked all the boxes because I didn't want the traditional home-based business model. And so I've got a full understanding of what it takes to create a business that you can do from home without actually being that person. I didn't want to get my family in that position of having to buy inventory and, having to go and deliver stuff and having to do presentations outside the home. And it all needed to be on my terms, no big investments, anything like that. And so I know what it takes to run a really successful business. And that business ended up retiring both Brett and myself from the corporate world. Now I know what it takes, and it breaks my heart that we had to go through something like this, but now I know, and I'm sharing it with so many women. And to me, that event has turned around into a blessing.